世间所有的相遇，都是久别重逢。
There was over the weekend was a snowstorm, right, in North America, some sort of polar vortex. I didn't know this word. My children corrected me. I thought it was something like a North Pole vortex. But in any case, well, I have to shovel the snow, right? But at the same time, a lot of things going on. Then I might have to think of a way to produce more, right? Rather than sitting here and talk for an hour or two, right? The advantage is that now not many people is going to come to my channel and listen to what I'm talking about, so that I can still have time to practice. Right? That is good, right? A lot of stuff that if people have time, they would benefit for sure. But for now, but I'm not in the best pace to produce. I need to improve, make sure the content is genuine, authentic. At the same time, it's been through my research and debate, right? Has to be benefit whoever spend, even a minute, right, to listen to me. I have to guarantee that. Cannot just. But at the same time, it's more of the process that I think through. The reason I do this is not just sharing news and making some sort of impressive video. That's not. It's really just for me to engage the world, right? And build up the business. Right? It takes a lot of effort. Right? It is actually doing it, but okay. Right? But I need partners, need investors, need people who can collaborate. Right? What is no other better way to just come here and open up, right? There are a lot of topics to cover. Let's see if I might need to split, optimize and make it more consumable. But for now, again, I use the method I'm doing so far. Right? Just combine things together, integrate them together, and see if I can see a silver lining somewhere. Right? Talking about the 2026 AI and robotics, listen to the Davos, a lot of talks there. But really, in my mind, the three key messages. One is the geopolitics, right? It's kind of picking up the pace and having new dimensions. That is an advantage for us, right? We have to have a slightly better view or larger scale when we look at what's going on in the world, right? Not every smart people, not every, the people that matter come to the Davos. But again, people who go there and talk, it's worthy, a listening list. You may not agree with them, right? And the people who are representing the states or region like European Union, their delegates, the Vice Prime Minister from China is there, the President of the US is there, the Prime Minister Carney there, right? They all give their opinion. Right? The other side, the BlackRock and the JP Morgan, right? And Citadel, right? They are the very systematically significant financial institutions, right? We have to respect what the view, right, may not be representing entirely the business, but again, as an individual, if they can be that successful, it's something that we need to learn from them, right? On the AI and the robotics side, Elon Musk there, Jensen Huang, right? Demis Hassabis there, CEO from Anthropic there. There are others, right? I cannot recall. But on the crypto side, Binance, Zhao Changpeng, I didn't really see a particular recording, but seems to be, according to CNBC, is there, right? And there's some chats there. It's pretty decent man, right? And obviously it's not so furbished in terms of the presentation skill, in terms of the political rightness, right? But again, there's a lot of credible views from him. Right? The Coinbase, right? These are two of the institutions, economy institutions may be premature, but they love to put on the chart, right? So that we can observe them. The story behind the Binance is incredible, right? And I think they are partnered with a number of government regulators, right, to define the new next wave of how we move forward the financial ecosystem. That is one of my key interests to observe, because I sense we do need a new financial ecosystem in terms of, for example, to redefine what the finance is about, what money is, how we're going to accumulate the wealth and distribute the wealth. It impacts the core of our civilization, the individuals. What do we perceive that we can produce if we measure some of our achievements using the money, right? And it doesn't mean this the only measure. Is it the right thing to do? Is it the right measure to use? But a question before that is, how do we really put a number to whatever you're worthy, right? Is it because you have a lot of stocks or options, or because you have a lot of land, minerals, or mines, right? Or because you produce stuff, through manufacturing industry, right? So those are the questions, right? What the role of finance, banking, right, investment, right? Those we have to rethink. As a nation, like when sitting in Canada, right, Prime Minister Carney speaks volume, right, to say that, but it's going to face a lot of opposition. But then again, it's something worthy the merit of putting Canada on the chart, my chart, right? So those are the two, right? Financial ecosystem and AI robotics, where they're going, right? And the third one is that we really need to think about the fundamentals, right? That's when I mentioned the geopolitics. That's important, right? Why we come to today. The fundamental questions are, we need to think about, in my term, we need to think about the sovereignty, right? And what does it mean? Like, at individual level, you need independence, right? But you need a family, do you not? You need a community, Why do you need that? And a question that basically relate to others. Think of the hunter-gatherer, so those ages, right? Do you really need a family? I don't know, right? Why? One of the keys that you do not accumulate wealth, do you? Right? It's hard to measure that. You kept a nut, you eat it, right? You catch a fish, you eat it, You get a squirrel, you may make a friend with the squirrel, and you can continue to the gathering, hunting, so on and so forth, right? But when agriculture comes, you have land, right? You have produce. That is why you have civilization, in a way that you accumulate some sort of the wealth. You need to pass it down, or you need to distribute. Who have that sweet corn? Who have that soya bean? Who eat the fish and how much, right? How to cut if we get something that worthy of, it's like a delicacy, right? How do you divide it? Do you first give the children, the family members, or do you give whoever the prestige, the head of the tribe or whoever? Right? Those are the fundamental questions. Right? This is how we come by. Now, coming to today, right? It is a new era, right? I keep mentioning the sovereign robotics, right? Sovereign robotic beings, right? Like human beings or independent human beings, right? Is it comparable? I'm not sure, but it is significant. It's going to come, right? The workforce is going to come. The AI agent, agentic AI agent, right? The robotic, sovereign robotic beings, right? They'll be part of the workforce. They're going to be our partners, right? It's coming. Not there yet, but it's coming, right? And so that redefines how we need to call ourselves like human beings. Right? Do we treat them equally? I guess not. Do we not treat them equally? I guess not, right? In many ways, they're more intelligent than us. They're more powerful than us, right? They produce a lot of stuff, right? Do you give them salary? I don't know, right? So do you own them? Those are the questions. Not try to be philosophical, but you do need to think about the philosophy, right? The basics. I don't like the word first principle, right? But the fundamental, the physically. We come into a new reality, a physical reality, right? Forget about the multi-planetary civilization for a moment, right? That's important, that's very inspiring. But even on Earth, how do we live with the robotic beings, sovereign robotic beings, right? How? How do we measure our humanity, right? Like, for example, if we integrate with Neuralink, for example, put a lot of chips in your brain, right? Does it change you as a human being? Like genome, right? You have Caesar you can edit your genes, under the name of curing some of the diseases or whatever. Right? It enhances you or it destroys you. Where is your humanity, right? I mean, what humans are today going to be redefined, right? That's why I use the word redefine, right? Humans, not humanity. Right? Are we going to become a new species, right? There's a lot of literature, there are school of thought, right? Doesn't mean they're right. Right? I'm here thinking through as well, right? And I invite you to think through. Why? Because that's business, right? Talking is also business, right? You need thinker, you need speaker, you need authors, right? You need a comic show, right, to deliver a message. That's all very important. It's all part and parcel of what we call civilization, right? It's not, so grandiose you cannot reach it. You live in with it. Right? How you walk, how you speak, how you dress up, how you relate yourself to robotic beings. That's all part of the civilization. And it's more importantly, do we still need family? Do we need to produce children? And how do we do that? It's going to impact it, right? And the world, right? Do we need to measure ourselves by how much money we can earn? By that measure, Elon Musk is the richest man, right? So many people want to be Elon Musk, but is that the right model to be? I don't know. Certainly he's an incredible man, but he also lives a very tight life, right? Do you want to take that pressure? And can you? Do you really want that much money? And in his words, we have a future abundance, right? Abundance, right? A lot of money, everybody's high income. That is logically not quite correct. If everybody have a high income, right? Why do you need those much of income, right? I don't know. Like it's like you have a bread, everybody can afford it. It's $1, but if you say, hey, now we're all very rich, it becomes $1,000. Why don't you cut the 30 after one? It's still $1. Okay? You cannot say because you have $1,000 you're richer than the person who have $1. Not really. It depends on how you value the world, right? And how do you give it a number? So value in it, right? So what's the value if everybody is a billionaire? How do you measure? Then do you say that whoever live longer? May not be, right? You don't want to live forever. Kind of boring, isn't it? I mean, death has value, as Elon Musk and some others put it, right? And so those are the fundamentals. The individual level, I think we define the human, right? It's my thinking, right? I quote the question as how, right? I don't know if it makes sense to you. What is this? Yeah, I mean, try to flip it over. I have a lot of things to communicate. I don't know. It's, I mean, slightly more. We do need business, right? You know, some way of organizing the workforce, right? Produce stuff, right? Make sure people can collaborate, right? Not in a family. And that's for like humanity, right? But in a society, you need businesses. Economy is important, right? It's a way of how we organize our activities, right? Business. In that case, my proposal is we need to define the ontology part. Okay? But ontology is equally applicable, or more important, intuitively at the individual human level, which I'm going to come down into details. I'm going to get into a lot about the actual ancient text, right? How we define that, not just the later Western ethics, philosophy, or some biological means. It's important, but yeah, let's see. We're going to have a deep dive and really understand. It is more applicable, however, at the business level or enterprise AI. Right? Enterprise AI cannot be really impactful without the ontology. That's my opinion, right? You could debate with me if you think you have a point to make, right? I don't mean the Palantir way of, ontology, not ontology you look up in the dictionary. Certainly not, right? The third one is, I mentioned, is the wealth, right? Money. What money is, what wealth is, how we should measure ourselves, right? How we should distribute the wealth, right? Do we need to solve the poverty? Right? Do we need to equally distribute it, or do we need to give whoever produce more, make them richer and have more wealth? But how do you pass down? Right? Pass down what? Through what? Generation, or through any other form? How do you pass down, right? But wealth is one, right? Also the name, right, in history. Now, how do you record ourselves in history? That's important. That's also wealth. Not tangible, but it's very real. Like if you really care about your children, grandchildren, the next generations, right? A name is more important than money. That is also wealth, right? Do you need to measure that? I mean, that's why you have the royalty, right? The royal family, right? The aristocracy, right? They have big families, right? Is that the model we should continue? I mean, the world is drifting into that state. Is that the right thing we need to do? is the best for the human beings? Is it going to sustainable in a new reality where human beings need to collaborate with robotic beings, build up the new world? Those are fundamental questions, right? I don't know if you realize that those are business opportunities. Okay, you have to be getting physical, right? It's very real, but if you don't realize that, I don't know. Like you can create another 10, 20 AI agent, but it doesn't mean much, does it? Right? You can again earn another billion, but it doesn't mean much to you. How you keep it? Why do you keep it? Right? That's the question. Because you want to be wealthy. Then what is wealthy? Okay. Do you want to live a better life? What do you mean by that? Okay. So those are the fundamental questions. Those are business questions, right? If you can get it right, you should be given a prize for that, right? As again, everybody have a special value. Right? Don't underestimate yourself. If you cannot be a scientist, not an AI engineer, can you be a speaker? Can you be a thinker? Can you be an author? Right? Can you be a philosopher? A lot of stuff, education, right? We mentioned it. It's important, right? Entertainment. What do we do? Every day we just getting online and talking with robots or AI agents. And everybody have a new, girlfriend or boyfriend which are robots or just a voice. Is it the healthy life to be? Probably not. But it's going to have a huge impact on the humanity, psychology. Is it healthy? Is it the right thing to do? A lot of questions, right? I don't have time to read novels, right? But now seems to be going back to touch the roots, the basics. That's why I put up architecture called I Ching architecture. I'm going to dive deep into that. Simplicity and also very, you describe the world, it also predicts, right? Like, there's a lot of mutations. It is really a formula. What do you call it? Doesn't matter. I don't like the first principle is because if you compare to the I Ching way of thinking, the first principle is nothing. Okay? I don't know why people keep sticking to that. Right? Again, maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, right? But then again, if you really want to create a new world, redefine the humans, right? Redefine ontology for the business, 3 levels, and for the state level, you need sovereignty, right? The world is important, Or as a nation, if you Adam Smith, right? A lot of it's not like a repeating. We're really come to a new era, a new age. You need to rethink those fundamental questions. Right? Those are business, by the way. Right? It's not just talk about it. If you're able to, if you're not a good speaker, but you're able to build a business, right? Do it. Right? You're able to produce like AI, the Apple, some sort of OpenAI, some gadgets or devices or new LLM. Do it. We all play a part. It's really hard to say who is more important. One way to measure it is the value or money you attach to it, right? The other is maybe historically, like thinking of 1,000 years later, right? If you look back, is the richer folks have a better record, or is it the person who solved the philosophical problem of humanity, family, sovereignty? What money is. How do we deal with the new world robotic beings? What is the better model to governance, right? What laws we should make? How do we really mine the minerals, right? How do we base our real world asset to define the new money, a new payment system, new financial ecosystem, right? Those, like Alexander Hamilton, right? I don't know how rich he is. I don't know, right? Does that matter? Does anybody remember how much money he has? But in banking, you should remember him for not how much money he had, but how he influenced, the modern banking to become, right? Especially in North America, right? So again, right, we need a new generation of Microsoft, right, Google, Amazon. And we need a new generation of Elon Musk, right? Demis, right? Hazabis. Right? We need Alibaba, right? That Marvin. We need Liang Wenfeng. We need Huawei. So Ren Zhengfei. It's a lot more, right? Yang LeQuan, Pei Fei Li, right? Zheng Huang. They all come and go, right? That's why we need to observe them. It is one way to respect, the other is to care. Right? We want them to flourish. Right? I don't want them to make mistakes, but eventually some will. Right? It is in the business world. It's always very hundreds of thousands of startups. How many make into the status of OpenAI or NVIDIA? How many can survive? Right? The business is a survival game, right? It is, right? I used the line called kill line for that reason. Most of them will just kill, right? It's very few survive and then climb the ladder, right? Okay, naturally, if you remember the pictures I use, that's what I do, right? I monitor them. It's out of the respect, out of care, right? I do care because I also want to be part of it, right? Because we need another half. I only able to identify maybe 60 by now, a little shy of 60. We need another half almost, right? I'm talking about 100, right? They don't exist today. Or exist and significant enough, right? A lot of opportunity there, right? We need to redefine the human. We need to redefine the ontology for the business, a lot of small banks, right? Manufacturers, right? The hospitals, right? We also need to understand the world, right? It's cut through, especially at the state level. Right? Keep printing money is the best way to produce wealth? Is the stock market inflation? Or sign a contract of future, right? For a higher price for the silver and then claim you have another billion? Is that the real world? Or do we need to couple with oil, or carbon, whatever, credit or AI or real world asset? What do we need to all the industrial capacity? How do you really? You have to find a way to redefine that money, right? The world, right? The financial ecosystem. How do you do banking if you do not even understand how to do a credit and debt balance sheet, right? What is your credit? What is your debt, right? You know that? It's basic question, but it's also very fundamental, hard questions to answer to get it. Different people have different opinions, right? But the market will tell that who is right, who is wrong for a moment, right? At least for a moment. So my way of thinking is more, rather than philosophical, it's very physical, as I call it. That's why the business I build is also very physical, very down to earth, right? Very domain specific, very, break matter, right? It's like you have to be tangible, touchable. People can feel it. It impacts people directly, tangibly, physically. Right? I mean, we can talk about all those philosophies, arts, or whatever we have many eloquent speakers. They're really sophisticated, important, right? But not everybody are, right? We have to play our rules. Me, I think my best strength is not talking, right? But doing, right? Building, right? Building businesses, building products, right? At the same time, I need to think. I cannot just produce a lot of stuff. I have to really make sure that whatever I produce is going to benefit me, benefit people surrounding me, benefit where I am, benefit, and not try to grandiose the world I live in. Right? Those money that I don't benefit people, I should not even earn. That's my principle. You have to, it should be, it's like a award, rewarding you, right? If you do good, you should become whatever rich you are or wealthy you are, right? For the right cause, right? Because otherwise it's another way of suicide, right? You get a lot of money through robbing people. Eventually you have to pay back, right? I don't know whether people realize that. Doesn't matter individually or business or as a nation, as a civilization, you cannot get away with it. Really. Eventually it will pay back. Okay? And why not get it right? But again, it's not like, you have to be so squarely, fitting these rules and ethics. No, forget it, because those are made for a purpose. Doesn't mean they're real, right? Which is why in a new era, we need to redefine or define new laws, right? Okay, that is how. That's what it is. 3 questions. But also 2 answers. I call it lift versus wall. What's a lift? Yeah, better find something that rather than talking forever, right? Maybe this give you a bit of insight, right? But before I move, is there anything I want to show you? Or the silver squid? Yeah, that's something I've been looking through, right? Or RWA, we talked about the Canada, right? Traditional finance and DeFi, right? Those are important, right? You have to say, what is it? The stablecoin. That's an interesting proposition, right? In Davos, people talk about that. I really need to separate these conversations into a more theme-oriented, focused little presentation. Let's see how I can do that, right? I just try to use the advantage for now that not many people are really listening. It's not like I don't want to benefit, because I know that my presentation of doing these videos online is not that perfect yet. I need to improve, and make it more consumable. Right? Really wish that whoever watch this, you benefit. That's my intention. Right? If you don't, I feel a little, you better not watch it. Right? If it doesn't suit you, just skip or run away. Okay? Yeah, this is something we need to really debate about, right? You remember that Genius Act, the Clarity right now on hold, right? They have a crypto project. President Trump talked about it. BlackRock CEO talked about it. The CEO of Coinbase and CEO, a partner of the Binance. A lot of people talking about it, right? In comparable state of AI, robotics, crypto, stablecoins, right? Those are 2 of my streams of income in terms of the business, right? Because it is meaningful, not because it's making money, right? You're selling coffee, it's money. Right? If it is meaningful, you should, right? That's what I mean. If you're selling something that harm people, you shouldn't. Although it makes a lot of money, you shouldn't do that. So the real goal is, in a way, you call it new industrialization or reindustrialization, doesn't matter. In Canada, for example, you need reindustrialization. The AI and robotics give you the advantage, possibility. Same thing with America and some other, G7 countries. Maybe this is the last opportunity if you can catch the tail, right? Otherwise, it's going to be not so good, right? Quite blissful kind of. For China and some developing countries, the global south, you need to think of a new industrialization. Industrialization, why is important? Why don't we go back to the primitive state of our agriculture? Right? Because science, technology, engineering, we are in that state, we should use the new forms of produce, right? The new organization forms, like industrialization, electricity, the steam engine, right? Is all come along. The steels and the internet, the computers, right? Now with AI, robotics, right? You have to push forward, right? Because we have the responsibility to maintain us, make sure that our civilization survives, right? And in a way, imagine in the sky there was a lift, right? You have civilization level 1, you have civilization level 2. 2 means better, more enhanced, multiplanetary, for example. If this is a lift, we should get on the lift. It's like an elevator, right? Vertically or whatever, to the deep space. You should do that. That's what maybe like AI robotics offer us, right? What is the T? T is technology, right? What is F? F is finance. Make it simple, right? L is law. You have to be governed. Legal, you cannot just run wild. It's not going to work for long, right? You need to organize yourself, right? Yeah. At the human level, you need families, right? That's one way of organization. You need state. Okay? It's not just talking, right? You have to organize. You have to utilize the collaborative problem solving. That has strength, right? See? I, industrialization, right? F is finance. T is technology. You need to push forward. Science, technology, engineering, like AI, robotics. They are fit into the technology part. But on the other side, we could also destroy each other, right? That's what I call war, right? AI can be used to destroy each other, right? AI can be used for fraud, right? You know that. I don't need to talk too much on that, right? So it's sometimes too obvious to even mention that. We take for granted, right? Working as well. So really, I mean, those what I've been thinking through. I make it what is war, right? Workforce, I mentioned. All weapons, right? And what is A? Like A, I'm just playing a word game, right? My advantage is I know the West. I live here for 35, 40 years, right? But out of the 60, I was in China, right? Born, raised there. I think I'm very educated there, right? I know it so well, right? That's why the overall architecture is more like I Ching. I believe it's way better than a million times better what you call first principle. Those are just, I don't know, right? Many people use it. People revere it like the golden rule, right? I respect that, but I have a different opinion. That's what I do. Right? I Ching architecture, right? But I have to combine strength. English is a wonderful language. They always play the word game. The Danish guy, they clever. That's fine, right? It's very captive, right? Very touchy, very catchy, right? It's directly connect to you. That's the power of language, right? Which is why I call it how, lift, or war. How is the question? Redefine human, redefine the ontology for business, right? Individual business, the state is the world. How? Show W. Simple, right? That's the question. The answer will be lift, like what I try to image that I put on the deep space, right? You can lift the civilization or whatever your country, like get on the fast way, the fast track, quick way, right? Progress from today become very, very, quickly become the level 2, level 3, level 5. Right? Thinking about it, have become a multiplanetary. Right now, your per capita income is 10,000. What if you have 6,000, 60,000, right? That'd be good, right? And which country do not want to be? But how? Maybe robotics can give you the advantage, right? If you use it rightly. The other is war, right? Oh my God, it's a zero-sum game, right? Like resources. I'm gonna get your mind, right? I'm gonna take over your resources. There's another way, right? Because if you take that, the other country who want to develop will not have the ability. You know the tactics, right? In a village, right? The rich landlord, right, who has all the land, becomes old, even function properly. He's not able to produce much crops or wealth anymore, right? And he's wealthy enough, but he's declining, right? Because the productivity is down. So what he does is he using stones and fill up all those water wells, right? So that people will not have enough to water their irrigation, the crops, and have better harvest, right? And they will not have clean water to drink, right? He's not going to get it better. He makes sure that no others getting better, right? You know, it's kind of war, right? But war can mean, right? You can use AI robotics for weaponize it, right? You can weaponize anything, the resources, the AI robotics, or industrialization, or your financial ecosystem, or even your mind, right? Like you have a value system, right? You can use it, weaponize it, right? You can decide who is a winner, who can be wealthy, right? Who win the prize, and who should have the name. Doesn't mean you're the best, but you're not allow anybody else to win the prize, right? To have a good name. That's also war, right? It is very sophisticated, very subtle, but also very powerful. You know, it's not only like people use the business as, you know, referring to the war, art of war, right? Art of war is kind of misleading, right? You have to be really be specific, right? You know, those are pretty basic stuff for me, right? I don't know why everybody keep quoting mine, right? Maybe they just use the name, but down to earth, you have to look at the business practice, right? The market force. There are a lot of things domain specific, right? Have to fit in the time, strategy, right? Not only you, but how about your competitors? That's why I put it like, you know, there was a KU land, but also a land, a place where you are on the top, right? You're a star, right? You give in a world. Right? You have to counter this. But first of all, you have to survive. Okay? Before you can become successful, you have to survive, right? So yeah, I'm looking for a lot, and see, before I move off this Canada's sort of strategy, right? The new value, yeah, I've talked about that, right? What is this? Regulated track, critical info. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, we talked about the 6 layers, right? Let me if I find anything, right? What is it? The year of growth. Success belongs to those who own the bridge between the digital mind and the physical world, the power, the pipe, and the protocols, right? Oh, that's good. Let me find something. Yeah, before I move on, you know, I heard the CEO of JP Morgan talk about that, right? We need to pay some attention. Obviously, they have more information than I do, right? Why they make those moves, right? Visa, Master, Citibank, HSBC, New York Bank of New York, JP Morgan, BlackRock, many others, right? I also listen to Siemens, right? The more like technology. It's a German company, very respected company, right? That's a different thing, right? But now more industrial, the money, financial side, we really need to pay some attention. You know, I'm gonna dig more and present back, right? Because it's part of my business, right? I don't know if it makes sense to me. This is my business, right? Physical AI, sovereign robotics, right? How we explain more, right? Better to show you the actual product, right? It's a strategy of, you know, being the third place, right? Redefine humans, redefine ontology, and redefine world, right? In a business way, using AI robotics, right? Rather than just being philosophical or talking beautiful words, right? Because that's my strength, right? I'm in that strategic position. Here's where I talked about the how, live, war, right? Law. So this is really $1 trillion triple trillion-dollar question. Right? We need to redefine the humans, right? We need to coexist with robotic beings, or sovereign robotic beings, if you will, right? Ontology is more enterprise AI. Right? The worlds, what do you mean by worlds? Right? We need to redefine that, and so the financial ecosystem, right? So two approaches. One is the lift. I mentioned it's like a lift elevator in the deep space, high up to the sky, right? I mentioned you need the law, compliance, regulatory, new rules, right? You need industry, right? Manufacturing, reindustrialization, doesn't matter, new industrialization. The key game changer is the AI robotics, right? And especially physical AI and sovereign robotics, right? Finance, need new capital, find new money, like new banking system, new worlds model, like, those kind of things are not philosophical, are very real, right? You're going to impact it. It's psychologically connected to you. That defines relationship, it defines what a state is, right? What a family is, right? The Queen's family, if they lose all the money, are they still the Queen? Think about it, right? One way or the other, you are defined by money, right? Or wealth. If you have $1 billion, do you need to go to work tomorrow morning? Worried about the big snow tomorrow, I cannot catch the bus or drive. You're probably not going to worry about that. It's impact your health, your psychology, right? It defines who you are. I don't need to explain that. People know that. And again, technology mentioned. The major thing is the physical AI and sovereign robotics. Just, that's the top. I can show you that very soon, very quick. War is more like, metaphorically, to intrigue that anger or desire, emotional react, right? Workforce. No matter reindustrialization or new industrialization, you need workforce. Those what I call solving a real world problem, right? People don't want to do hard work, or they're not, some of the minds are not suitable for humans. And also they have labor shortage in many of the developed countries. Canada, for example. This is one way you might be able to solve it, right? You need more nurses. I can train some robotic nurses for you. You need doctors. Same thing, teachers. It's one way. I don't mean this is a silver bullet or solve everything, but it's one approach in addition to what you can do today. Right? Make it a new business opportunity as well as one way to solve a real problem. Labor shortage, especially skilled labor, right? That is why I make it called Maicrobanker, Maicrolawyer, or Maicrodoctor. Right? It's money, right? It's just already done the Maicrobanker side, right? You can use it right away. Right? Partners and investors and to do that, really commercialize it, make it more like only through using it in the real industry you can really evolve them, right? You cannot just rely on the AI or large language model. It's a combination of strategic strengths, right? China, Canada, the US, Europe, and others, right? But it needs money to keep the float, right? Once people move, once the commodity and component products, the shipment cross the Atlantic Ocean or Pacific Ocean, the freight is here on the harbor. You need money, right? Without finance, how do you really run these operations, right? Forget about the reindustrialization if you don't have a new way of moving money. Make it really float and meaningful, okay? Not speculative, right? You're supporting a new form in a way of civilization, right? Remember, we redefine the human, we redefine new worlds, we define the new heart and soul of the enterprise. The business is changing in the new age of AI and robotics, right? Obviously, you need new capital markets, right? New banking, new way of funding your business, right? New way of give you recognition in terms of the monetary value of wealth, right? Okay. And on the other side, workforce, arm, right? ARM, literally, if you make a coffee engine arm, you don't need a full full-blown humanoid robot. I do. There are many other similar kind of robotic. You don't really need a human form, right? Do you? You can have a button. You can have a teeth, as I said. I love to have some teeth, right? You might have an eye with AI robotics, or maybe insert a few chips, right? In your brain, in your heart, in your bones, right? Make it stronger, right? Smarter, healthier. If that's the case, why don't? Why not, right? That is why we say we redefine the human, right? May not humanity, but human, right? The humans will be, human beings will be coexisting with robotic beings. That's coming. Okay, doesn't mean, okay, the biological and the silicon is standing side by side. It could also integrate, right? You know, insert chips in your brain is one way. You see in China, I can show you. One, the robotics, they have the brain cells, okay, on which they can run AI. It's that way around. You can also introduce the stem cells or brain cells or heart cells into the robotics, robots, the silicon part. So, you see, it is kind of blending, right? It's integrating, right? Doesn't mean you want to create a new species called human or robotic human, whatever you call it, but they're robotic beings, not simply a machine. They are partners, a new workforce. Remember that, okay? Even an arm, previously it's an arm, it's just a machine, right, who can lift something, but now it has intelligence in it. It's like it had a soul in it, right? That's where it makes a difference. Now, the wall, meaning arm, risks. You have a lot of risks, whatever you do. You may push it too far. In my opinion, physical AI, I'm solving robotics. The first thing you need to think is risks. That's why so many scary stories. Skeptic, right, in the talk, right? Many people are talking about, oh my God, they're going to take over our civilization, right? It's going to be destroy us. Maybe, but maybe that's kind of a little exaggerated, right? You know, but again, there are risks. Okay, that's why if I show you, they are on the level 6, right? Why level 6? That's where I'm sitting, right? Because in the I Ching model, 亢龙有悔, it could go too far. Same thing like in level 2, infrastructure is 天龙在田. It's very basic to me, but you know, maybe take me forever to explain. This is more reflecting the nature, how the civilization is, how we function as human species, right? The society, right? Been there for 1,000 years, been tested, used for many different situations. Doesn't matter, military, industrialization, you know, governance, law, you know, agriculture, many different, you know, philosophy, you know. So the art of war is based on this, maybe a fraction of this, right? So, which is why it is practical. It's very real, very easy to use as well. So by now, the 6 layers component with the word game, right, that I played is how lift a wall, right? Very simple. I don't even need to think now. I can just master anything, everything that I see or I think, integrate it right away into the right place. That is when I think, oh, is it good or bad? Right? I know I have a framework to make this decision. You know, I don't need to think about it. It is natural. It's intuitive. That is the state I want to be in when I do business. I know immediately with the 6th sense or intuition what I should do, right? Whatever happens is a revelation to me. You know, whatever the talks in Davos, what happens in the silver mines and in the financial market, in AI, robotics technology in China, in Europe, in Africa, it is all become relevant to the business I do. Okay? That is the way, and I encourage you to think, what is your, it's like operating system. What is your operating system? What is your base, your human, that part of the humanity that you have, right? You need, if you want to get in this world, you might need something like, that you can manage yourself, right? Your time, your life, right? Your family, your business, right? Or whatever you want to do. I'm going to go through this very quickly. It is more like we diverge, we talk a lot. It's going to be a lot of pushback. You mentioned arbitrage, right? The corridor, data as asset, and here's more like assembly point, right? This is more like, that's my part, right? I have research, development, building, manufacturing, and also the showroom. You have to be able to entertain people, all of you have to facilitate the financial part. You have to be able to show and sell, right? You have to invite people to touch and feel. That's what again, investment. If you have money, I guarantee you 100 times the return, right? The 3 line of products for now, a bit more. And it's more like a retro, sort of, this is more like a fleet, right? I have a lot of things already done. Yeah, China brain, whatever, middleware, hardware, compute. It's more like in quickly, operations, ENY, bridge, right? Here's where tokenization, one line of business I'm entertaining. I need a lawyer. I'm a lawyer, right? I'm doing law for a while, but this is where I focus. I don't want to just do a notary or something that's kind of funny, right? Cute. Strategic rollout, right? This is where I'm doing when it's doing Canada. Leave the wall, right? Again, so I go through this quickly. Let me try to dig deeper. We're going to change the model of presentation later on, maybe put into specific theme-based, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. For now, let me go through this. The framework has been built, right? Hopefully you know what I'm talking about, right? And why I'm talking about it, how it relates to yourself, right? If it's relevant, listen. Spend your time. If it's irrelevant, skip. Don't waste your time, right? If it's my principle. Again, it's not sure if it's telling, but this is what I've been doing, solving a real world problem, especially now, given the dynamics of fragmented supply chains, the uncertainty of the geopolitics, right, and the severe kind of shortage of labor. People just don't want to produce children anymore, right? The immigration, a lot of problem. I think I do have a solution, and will of business benefit a lot of people. Again, the message is that I do need partners. I need capable people. I need investors. I need to roll up. Only scaling up, you actually benefit more people, right? So again, let me look at something that closed the chat today. Yeah, they might observing like Mark Zuckerberg, the metaverse, right? Don't know how much they produced the actual revenue there, but now they're have a new strategy, right? To the AI glass, right? Something you need to watch. The Meta, Apple, and Google. Okay, this the market, right? You have neural control, EMG, invisible, right? A lot of money to be made there, and the 9-to-1 loss ratio, right? Right? Reality Labs lost 9 and every whatever it is, right? You need a lot of research. You need to string a lot of money. That's why you need investment, right? Unless you are rich like Mark, right? This is where I mentioned, right? Embodied intelligence. The race between silicon scale and biological evolution, right? You look at the biological track serves for energy efficiency. It means you have biological stem cells on which you run the AI. You put that into the brain of the robots, right? That's what it means. There are advantage and disadvantage, but in try to find that footage. In China, they have that already. See, there are two paths to the same goal: autonomy in the physical world, physically, right, or robotics, right? When you might, use the brutal force and compute, right? Produce the neural network-like and some sort of intelligence. Tesla is building the perfect body. Researchers are growing the perfect man. Right? Silicon chips versus brain on chips, right? Look at it, right? Brain on chips, a chip in brain, are two different approach, right? Programming by simulation and instinctive adaptation, right? Ethics is one question, right? It's kind of stings people, right? That's why we redefine the humans. That's why we redefine the robotic beings, right? You need to go through a lot of try and true, right? So Tesla Optimus J3, the commoditization of labor, it's going to roll out, right? I think they delayed again, but I'm not sure when. It seems to be they encourage that each and every of us get the Optimus, right? But now it's industrial. Look at it, the XAI, the private car, right? Liability, who is responsible? That's a good question, right? Responsibility, accountability, new regulations, right? You have the body, then you have the brain. What if this goes wrong? Who are you going to blame? For example, like you're driving you're sitting in the Tesla, right? A car. The FSD enabled. You don't need to really drive it. You just sit in there, you can sleep there. What if you got into an accident? Let's say you ran over somebody. So who is accountable? Tesla or you? And you may say, oh, I didn't. I was sleeping. I didn't know that. And Tesla said, well, I gave you FSD, but you're still the driver. The law says, you have to put your hand on the wheel. You're accountable eventually, right? So those has probably already been some lawsuits, right? Maybe some cases. I don't know what is going on, but do we have a real regulatory kind of some sort of laws to cover that in a meaningful way, right? I doubt it, right? Maybe in states or somewhere in Europe, like EU AI Act. But then does it govern the autonomous driving? I don't know. Like, what about Canada? Which is why they have a very different driving, autonomous driving, like kind of technology approach. But again, question remains: if it goes into a accident, who is going to be accountable? Okay, and right. So the same thing, like you use the AI to make music. Should you get the royalty out of those music you made, or should the AI company, or should whoever like you use their music to train the AI model, right? And it is hard questions to really get an answer, but we have to face the reality. That's where we are, right? I don't know. Maybe you can ban it today and tomorrow you allow it, and eventually it's going to be some sort of new regulation laws to be made, right? Here it is, biological intelligence, right? The silicon ceiling, the limits of the brute force, right? Silicon AI requires megawatts, a lot of energy and frozen intelligence. You're not able to really adapt. Right? The pivot is biological intelligence, like our brain. You have brain cells grow inside the robots, the brain, like the upper chamber, right? And you run AI there, right? It's kind of adaptive. It can grow, right? Think about it. Are you create a new human or what? So the brain organoid, enter the meta BOC, brain on computers, not BCI, brain computer interaction. Brain on chips, right? I forgot the brand name, but I'm going to dig it up. This is something that kind of, feel uneasy like me when I first see it. What hell is this doing, right? You know, but something, right? Feel not that good, but you know, there's something, right? It's new. I don't know if it's legal or not, but maybe technologically it is one approach, right? Bring organoid definition, moving from open loop cell on dish in a dish to closed loop cells controlling emotion. Wow, right? Electrode array, right? And it's a detailed robot interface. Right? And different loops, you know, how you learn, how you train, right? With the accuracy, you know, there are power, Silicon Valley reinforcement learning, there are cortical labs, right? Chromosome Pro, regular. I guess it'll be a lot more brainware, a lot of new companies, businesses come up in that direction as well, right? You see, you can put a little brain on your hand. The nerve system, right? You can put organoid, right? You can put a brain cell there. Again, it's kind of, I don't know, right? But again, soft layered artificial skin, detect pressure, texture, temperature, vibration. Those are billion-dollar businesses, right? Anything that you can do is huge, huge market, right? Tactile kind of sensational sensors, right? What about the nose? Can you smell? Can a robot smell? You know, if you can do that, you don't need a canary bird anymore, right? You can smell the gas yourself, right? Or there are other means, but you know, maybe a better way. But one comparison that, you know, what about you put a brain, you put some chips, you know, with some human brain in a shark's brain, right? Can you drive the shark? Can you drive the tiger, right? Maybe you can, right? Like, you know, that's where the new way of tame the natural habitats, right? Animals, wild animals. Right? If you can, well, you can use tigers as army, right? Rather than just being robots. There are a lot of tigers, right? Kind of easier to to produce, right? You can put a robotic brain into the tiger's brain, have some human brain organoid right there. Essentially, you make the whatever the mysterious sort of the ancient kind of tales, fairy tales, true, right? But you solve a good problem, right? You can put this brain, you know, chips on brain, whatever you call it, right? In tigers, sharks, right? The bears, right? Not only army, you could also make our Earth very happy, right? In a harmonious way. Okay? A lot of things you could do, but you have to take the step. Not every step is welcome, right? There's a lot of risk as well. You're gonna face a lot of opposition, right? Skepticism for sure. Look, the limitation of where kind of biologically is fragile, right? The lack of architecture. It's life, right? How do you scale it up, right? But China started well, Silicon Doctrine in the US, right? Elon Musk and a lot of other entrepreneurs. The wetware, like the organoid on the robots, is China experimentation, right? The bypass the lithography via biological efficiency. A lot of implications, right? The past EDI, they ignore silicon sanctions and hardware limitation. Look, illustratively, toxic. That's where I mean by redefine the human, right? Not only redefine him, redefine the nature, right? In a way. But again, the physics, right? Again, I always remind people, don't play the finger of, you know, the God, right? Because you are not the God, right? Be very careful with it. But you have to scientific study, right? The neuroprosthetics, right? A living bridge to repair damaged circuits. Studies show lab-grown tissues forming vascular connection. That's something, scientifically is approach, right? You look at it, right? Now the robot has a human brain, right? Organic, coral, biological, pathway, medical grade illustration, Tesla, silicon, the biological organ. So the man problem, right? Are you going to produce consciousness, right? Or produce some sort of a humanity alike something, right? Energy, adaptability, true learning. We talk so much of AGI. There's many ways to achieve it, right? If does it exist, right? But you can again change the concept, right? What is AGI? What AGI is might not be built in a lab, in a fab. Fab meaning the chips, a factory, right? It might be grown in a lab, right? Could be. Those are something we need to watch. Right? So, okay, we make it a larger. The forefront of the decade. One is more intelligent, and so big as a side, that's Ilya, right? XAI, Elon Musk side, right? And others, right? And the glasses, we look at metaverse, like Google and others, right? Smart glass. And then the wetware, the BCI or BOC, right? Emerging 86 billion neuron with the cloud, right? And then resource, global supply chain, China restricted, some sort of weaponization point, the silver squid, that, rare earth. There are many others, right? You can also weaponize your payment system like SWIFT. Right? You can also weaponize your industrialization power. Right? You can also weaponize the way you can control some other, value systems. For example, what do you mean by wealthy, right? What money is, right? And what is right, what is wrong, how do you make a law to protect taxation, right? A lot of things you could do, but forget about right or wrong now. Why you do that, right? What are the consequences? You might have a good intention, but is it the right thing to do? Right? What are the consequences? Right? Those are the questions we need to ask, right? A lot of risk associated, right? But if you want benefit, you want money, right? There are a lot of risks for sure, right? I talk about it. Diaspora, right? I don't know. They're going, Elon Musk sues OpenAI and Microsoft, right? On the other side, President Trump of the U.S. sues Wall Street, like JP Morgan, the banks, right? On the crypto assets kind of stuff, right? They're all very significant, right? The safe, super intelligent Ilya Sussberg, right? It's a new lab, new business, $5 billion, right? And XAI, the Anthropic, the Thinking Machine Lab, with Mira, Marathi. We used to be all working in OpenAI together with someone, right? The Perplexity, right? The Challenger. They're all very smart business folks, scientists in a way. But again, the quantum computing is come, right? Many of this is going to change again, right? That's where the computing is important, right? Not only the chips. Okay, the ideological split, safety versus speed. True, yeah. Commercial, the unrestricted block, right? Philosophically anti-walk. Truth-seeking, tag, growth. Okay, a lot of different approaches, right? Glasses, we talked about it, right? They threw a lot of money into water, but now do they make some redemption, right? Apple, the ecosystem. I really think in the on-device kind of AI, Apple should be the winner, but I don't know why they're a little slow, right? But again, they're catching up. Abandoned the Vision Pro. There used to be a lot of commercial, not a lot of shows on the social media, but now the iPhone is one of the perfect devices. Maybe others, the iPad, right? The Google, they have the Android XR. In China, I don't see any yet. Maybe there are, but I have to search out. Right? The wall for what fair? That's some black rocks. We reviewed it in Utah area, right? They have one way of interacting, like brain and computer interaction. The paradromics, right? That's brain with the argo, right? It's not exactly Neuralink, but it's Neuralink, right? They have research side, they have the product, right? The Neuralink is really on the left celebrity, right? That is where robot-assisted surgery, like some human enhancements, right? Redefine human itself is incredible ventures in that. Synchron, the pragmatist, right? Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, and those people, right? Interest via veins, not open brains, right? But again, the FDA breakthrough devices, the patient accessibility, they're all each credible approaches, right? Each have the strengths. Decoding the mind, AI brain, right? AI decoder, digital output, right? Those are credible, right? Neuron noises, you listen into 86 billion neurons, right? Tsunami level data, right? It's like we have so many of the autonomy of the brain, our neural ecosystems, right? But really, do we have the real data? Or do we have a visual only, right? You cannot really do anatomy, right? How do you decipher what's in the cell? I mean, now we have a lot more data, right? That's deep learning, translation, and action speech, right? You may be able to use your thoughts to drive your car. Right? If that's the case, it's also something to celebrate. Right? Physical, yeah, again, part of, okay, what is this? Coverage, interlocking, right? A lot of things we need to watch, the interface Apple product. Similar as iPhone integration with, I think they are partnered with Google, right? Not OpenAI, or in some different aspects, line of products, right? The era of kinetic technology, right? From the AI who can chat with you to the AI who can take action, right? We have moved beyond permissionless software innovation. The next decade is defined by physical constraints, solvent interventions, talent-hearted phase, claimed biological chip, and a man's militarized. The future is already here, just being thought over ounce by ounce, neuron by neuron. Wow, what a catchy phrase, right? So I try to debate about the sovereignty. Sovereign and sovereignty are two words, right? They're not mean the same. They're not really related that much, right? It's SOVE, like above, right? The reign is, the reign, right? Conquer, control, manage, govern, right? So something that inside, but also above, right? In the typical spirit, or your soul, or whatever that is, right? But sovereignty is that a country, right? You're independent in a way, like a person, a sovereign, independent, right? You can, English is a funny word, funny language. It have a lot of interpretations, right? Sovereign robotics, by that I don't mean the robotics need to have authority. It should give it some sort of power, but eventually I think the human should control that, centered on human, right? I believe in the civilization that we live in is nothing, if anything that we do is nothing to do with humans or human civilization for the betterment of life, then shouldn't really spend too much time there. Maybe indirectly that's also okay, right? If nothing to do with it, maybe we need to rethink about those activities, right? That's where sovereign is, right? It has a self somehow, right? But again, it interacts with humans, like also interacts with other robots, robotic beings, like inner fleet, whatever you call it, in the operating system there. Does not mean that they're totally like authoritative, right? Another human being, like we have authority, right? Those are the, language, linguistics we need to decipher a bit more. We need to give some scientifically and legally credible interpretation, right? There are a lot of things we need to redefine, right? You don't call it a revolution, but it's a revolution in a way, right? Brainstorming every day, right? So, okay. Yes, it's another way of looking at it, like this, right? These visuals are very telling. Next-gen model, right? That is one frontier we need to get into. Embodied intelligence, the wearable walls, right? And the brain, the agency, the body, and economy, right? CapEx, new business models. New business models especially, right? They have a lot of one-man kind of companies, right? Previously it's impossible. Now it's very popular, right? If you go to Las Vegas, CES, right? A lot of people claim the CEO, but turn out they only have one person in the company. Right? Kind of amazing, right? We're in that era now, right? Like, why do you call it the CEO? Because one man, right? But again, it's legally true, and you might have to call yourself the CEO. Executive summary. The brain, the agency, the body, the economy. You can dive more. Where transition, a rupture, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney put it, the rupture, not a transition. Right? Technologically, we're transitioning, we're pivoting from artificial intelligence to actionable intelligence, embodied, physical AI, sovereign robotics, whichever way you call it. A lot of names, right? Depends on the garlic. I like garlic. I don't know whether, like when you peel the garlic, it's still something that they can see. But if you peel an onion, you're very intrigued, very curious, but you don't really have nothing in it, right? That's what illustratively, the metaphorically, the garlic versus onion, right? I like garlic. Okay? So let's see what GPT 5.3 can do. Uncoupling thought from speech. Wow. Input prompt, hidden reasoning, the model layer, the surface text, chain of thought, and post-hoc rationalization, natural logic, internal steering, final output. Research indicates logic is processed in the activation layer before chain of thought text is generated. The lie of the chain of thought. This is something very interesting. I might dig more. Like a Queen 2 TTS, speed of sound, right? Traditional speech models. 97, they have 2000 milliseconds, like 2 seconds of latency, right? Now 97. Wow. Architecture, discrete code generator, flow matching, and capabilities cross-language synthesis, instant cloning. This is very, 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 very interesting. That's from Alibaba, the Queen, right? They have the full stack. They have a lot of capital as well. This is something I need to dig more, the lie of chain of thought, right? But you do need some evidence grounding, right? What if you need to demonstrate and explain, right? Allow the observer, the human worker, to observe and verify. How do you transform that lie to legally binding kind of evidence-based interpretation, right? I'm playing words again, right? But in any case, the agent's dilemma, our eyes and agent, fragile screen scraping. I like this, right? Capture whatever. That's what I want to achieve, right? I'm pretty lazy. I want to draw. I use a lot of whiteboarding, right? I wanted to turn right into the code or something, right? Right away. I don't want to go through the middle thing. I think AI should be able to do that, right? But it's what if the necessity of the parallel web, right? That's also something interesting. The autonomous workflow, Anthropic, right? Coding part, the humanoid race, right? Moving from R&D instance to production reliability, right? Engine AI, Limix, right? This, Zeppelin suit design on figure 3 eliminates the pinch point for debris resistance, right? These are all very, very dexterous manipulation. They partner with BMW, right? So once you get into this field, there's a lot more things that you find is really interesting. And interesting in a way, it smells money, right? A lot of money to be made, right? Beyond the vision, the tactile breakthrough for the missing link, tactile sensoring, the sensors, right? Synthetic training scenarios, the mixing the virtual physics, real world data, adaptive learning versus rapid programming, right? The current robotics rely heavily on vision, Microsoft new system, touch intuition, wow, and dynamic grip adjustment, distinguishing between the baseball, firm grip, and net, delicate grip, right, without explicit force programming. That's incredible thing, right? So meta pivot, again, where the pivot is to AI overlay the virtual world, right? The acquisition of miners, right? This is smart glasses, right? The wearable wall, the bottle for the context layer. Meta, Apple, again, Google, Samsung. The infrastructure bubble versus build. The dot-com era with just a comparison, capex, operating cash flow, healthy capex. Okay. These numbers are telling, but not my favorite. New business models and convergence, monetizing the controlling agent reality, the profit pivot, SaaS. Yeah, that's where, I need to spend some time. People hang on there, like Salesforce, right? And the value sharing, the OpenAI exploring the profit sharing models, taking the cut, the value created, new drug discovery, the financial product, rather than just selling to success, the result, the final product, based on that to get remedies and proceeds and benefits, right, and payment, right, like in tool layer. Biometric profile, mechanism profiling user aid based on typing speed, vocabulary, and interaction patterns, not the self-reported days, right? Governance access. That's interesting. That's machine learning, right? Implication, governance access, AI capability, the capacities measured by user identity. Roadmap, the path to 2027. Yeah. 2027, too far to predict, honestly, right? So it's something that probably true, right? Humanoid robot into the real world. That's what I like. And garlic, the reasoning model, the new architecture, the AI pin, right? The smart glass, rise of parallel web, moving from human-centered UIs to structured machine-readable APIs. Yeah, you have to build infrastructure or interface for the robotics and AI to interact. Remember, we have a fleet. Human might be the ultimate, leader is accountable, but there are many AI agents. There are a number of robotics, right? They all need interface. They don't necessarily, the way that human experience the application architecture interface need to be trained, like not just a mobile or internet application interface. You type in and click 3 buttons and do that, right? Probably not true anymore, right? You need to train, right? Yeah, we look at the post-human interface. That's how we redefine it. I'm not sure how it's going to work out, right? Just looking through, right? The Caesar scale, right? And the pragmatic and synchron, right? It's more like endovascular veins you inject a bit, right? Not plant directly into the brain, right? It has implications as well as advantages, right? So pragmatics, Argo system, but this is a few school of approaches we need to look for, right? And essentially, can we escape the surgery? Could be, the soul of the machine. Wow, the decoder. And Xiaopeng is figure 3, NVIDIA. So it's like catching up, right? The Microsoft opt-in. Okay, it's supply chain logic, closing the loop, tactile intelligence, the sensor, calculating to filling, right? The Microsoft synthetic training, the generating virtual physics scenarios to teach instinctive handling where real world data is scarce, right? The group 5, the multimodal brain plus Optimus plus the body, the tactile feedback equal true autonomy. I mean, this is incredible, right? This is incredible. So this is the substate friend, right? Megawatts energy, hungry, right? The world card using living human agnoid stem cells to derive robots, right? We look at it, right? But this was a keep an eye on scale XAI, and the corporate that's some other man. Okay, I mean, it's a little speculative, but I think OpenAI is still doing good, right? Doing well, but they might have some challenges, right? Close the investment and profitability or revenue gap, right? Ecosystem wall. Apple, Synchron Alliance, right? Synchron Stint, iPad, wearable AI pins, and mask vertical, right? It has a end-to-end stack, right? The blast Redis, right? Social isolation, suicide. Oh yeah, this is also very, very, very evident, right? It's going to be more pronounced in my opinion, right? We have to do something, right? And the social activity in the young generation is worrisome, right? In China, it's more socialized, right? But in US, there's a very kind of fair capitalism, invisible hand, right? Let's see. We need to really take some action there. Financial collapse, yeah, Bible, bioweapons, or whatever, right? The key shape of evolution, cyber aristocracy versus organic proletariat, right? And the cyber gentry, memory explosion, night vision, 100 times processing speed, superhuman, right? And the organic class, right? Well, it's slightly far-fetched, but it's something we need to think through. That's what I mean by the risk. We are redefining human, are we not? Right? Believe it or not, we are already. Right? The Neuralink, the Apple wearable AI, and the mass production, Xiaopeng, right? ET1, ET, right? Figure and blind spot, the cure for blindness, right? First hybrid humans, right? It's not just a market war, it is war for the definition of the human species. I like the catchy part, right? Yeah, I mean, the huge businesses, right? The radical approach, the more pragmatic approach, right? And insert the chips right away, the open skull surgery, right? The philosophy is violent, aesthetics. Get the best signal, you must go directly into the brain's cortex, or even deeper, right? The surgical robot sews thousands of ultra-thin electron threads directly into brain tissue. Oh my goodness. The Go Human AI symbiosis, right, aims to solve the bandwidth gap between the slow humans and super intelligent AI. And the pragmatic part, you have gentle infiltration to ensure adoption. The procedure might be safe and minimally intimidating for users, right? The method is vesicular stent implantation, stent-like device with electronodes travel through blood vessels to the brain, requiring no open skull sort of surgery for sure, right? The goal is a seamless profile, right? Aims to allow users to control computers, electronics like iPad and Vision Pro. Neuralink versus synchron kind of approach, pragmatic versus, the second is pragmatic, the first was more radical, right? Elon Musk representation of the first, the Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates, right? Essentially, they all want to plant something into your brain, right? No matter how they get it there. It's dominated by the two opposing this very dominant. And we'll look at this before, right? This is like a first approach, right? This is where the loop, acquire, decode, and output and feedback. It goes on and on, right? It's a learning curve, right? Again, this is more like a symphony hall, right? Then architectural analogy for non-invasive versus invasive neuron recording constraints, right? Neuronal spikes, okay? Invasive front row seat, right? In the parking lot, you probably not so invasive, right? A bit of muffled though, meaning the bandwidth is different, right? Okay, the synchron is natural highway approach, right? Yeah, we're gonna follow up to see the huge implications, Okay, I'd like to close. This is also Mark Zuckerberg, Mark from Meta. Try to targeting the small business, right? AI agent, right? This is something that we need to watch for, right? As well. Hundreds of millions of billions. Right? The future isn't about a handful of supercomputers. It's about proliferation of distinct, specialized digital entities. We're entering an era of exponential digital identity, right? Density, right? Again, you look at it more like Europe, there in China, India, right? US, obviously, Canada, AI agents, right? Now, let's touch on the money or real world asset kind of thing, right? Basel III, you know what Basel III is, but now it's a new twist. A secret engine driving gold towards 7,000. Oh my God, regulatory flip, physical versus paper, right? Look at it, the physical gold, zero risk, not really. And the paper gold, a lot of risk. And the gold has been upgraded from a crisis hedge to a core pillar of banking liquidity. Why? It's a question, right? A lot of paper money, investor action plan, right? Unallocated, exceed paper. Need to prioritize the LBMA standard booleans, right? The 99.5 purity standard, that's the current one, the zero risk weighting, right? The survival demand. Right? The wave is coming, right? Well, the great supply demand imbalance, right? That's why we need to get a little physical, right? If Morgan, you look at it, right, institutional price, you look further than the Chicago exchange, right? The paper, the contract versus the real. That's why RWA has some potential. Not exactly as we see today, like a new financial thing. It doesn't have to be like that. Could be instrumental, which is why I mentioned that it's new. Could be important in the new financial ecosystem. Right? You might heard of the Binance founder Zhao Changpeng talking about it in Davos. Right? The payment is another, still yet to they need a lot of regulation. Right? But RWA is pretty universal, ubiquitous, applicable, right? Especially in the AI and robotics era. Right? It cuts in our all layers, if you will, right? That's more of the F side, finance, right? But also it's industry, the elements, right? The energy, and the finance for sure, right? And it is important in the AI robotics as well, right? Like a silver. You need these elements. You need to associate a value, right? It's how do you really kind of make it full, right? Create new business models, right? And you cannot use the old ancient sort of financial investment model, right? Even the venture capitalists need to think about, right? I'm pretty sure they've been thinking about more than me, right? They're all extremely astute in that domain, right? But again, it could be that it's something that I can share that whoever happened to listen, maybe 1 in a million or 1 can benefit right away. Right? Talking about money, I dig deep into the not history, but just a couple of decades ago, the PayPal, right? How they come by, where Elon Musk and Palantir, those folks, right? Peter Thiel. I'm reading some books there. It's something we need to learn, right? It's interesting, right? Bill Harris, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, right? The business, need to go through a curve, right? To survive is not easy, right? And how they did it, you may not be able to learn it, right? Because the environment changed, right? LinkedIn, the Tesla, the YouTube, the PayPal, there's a lot of Palantir, SpaceX. Right? So, yeah, why they survive? Agility, speed, and a product that serves the real pain point better than the bank, right? Oh, the final thought, the wars were just beginning, that the armies was forged. That's why I use war, the army was forged. Okay. Also, we look at the frontier. At Davos, you heard the JP Morgan CEO talked, right? Financial frontier from market crash to blockchain infrastructure. It's a long way, right? The greed and fear, right? Innovation, double-edged sword, right? 1907, remember 1987, the Hunt brothers, and 2008, the mortgage, I've been in two of them, least, right? Not so old, I wasn't there in 1907. But again, now we're into a new one, right? Luckily, I'm here. I'm kind of observing very, very keenly. Now, we're shifting to the new financial infrastructure. The shift from concept foundation, RWA, CDBC, stablecoin, blockchain, tokenization, bonds, real estate, and commodity, and migrated on-chain smart contract, using special purpose vehicles, right? Is the end of part as blockchain became the backbone, right? But many different kinds of blockchain, right? The ETFs, right, and the EU MiCA, right, and regulations like Genius Act and Clarity, a lot of them in Canada as well, right? But not too sure, like, one word you look at, right, the USD crisis is a mathematical certainty, right? You have to get out of the religion free floating rate before the correction, right? There's going to be a correction, right? Again, it's US on the left, zero-sum game, and the yuan, global south, or BRICS, or, whatever you call it, right? They have a different proposal, right? I've been reading a pile of books, right? And let me show you one, right? The JP Morgan House, right? The reason I do that, I need to think through rather than using this online internet kind of stuff, right? Again, those are written books, right? A lot of story online about JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, all that kind of, lot of conspiracy. I was never really interested in the debate, right? But really what has happened was, today what we can learn from them, right? The formidable players and historically recognized. That is where we have to respect and learn from them, right? The great reallocation, the new era, the hard asset versus digital real. Again, if you back to history, the crisis, cradle of the consolidation. Right? Again, in San Francisco, the market crash, the sovereign debt crisis, right? And where are we today? Right? And the five forces breaking the old order: the debt, the money, the deficit. Now, how many trillion? 33 or more. The internal conflict, the technology, the nature, the climate, the geopolitics. We all know that, right? So the new Han brothers, who will they be? The China strategy, the India part, and South Korea, and America, right? The delivery divergence, paper market versus physical reality. The iceberg of insolvency, private credit, the zombie companies. Wow, a lot of them, right? And liquidity trap in real estate. It's a huge problem. Is tokenization going to fix that, especially in the commercial real estate? I don't know, right? Let's see. Tokenization, the Aladdin, right? Larry Fink's vision, the second draft of the globalization, unlocked the 68 trillion for global infrastructure SDGs by tapping into the global savings. BlackRock acquires the frequent to integrate private data into Aladdin. Liquid fractionalized asset. That's interesting, right? Tradable instruments for global pension funds. Permission defined and unachieved, but unified for risk management, right? 68 trillion is a big problem, right? That is why I put it high on my radar. I need to be part of solving the problem, right? The Chinese approach, the US approach, right? The EU approach. What is the Canadian approach, right? Controlled by code, the one common ledger, smart contract, public blockchain, right? Interoperability, there are enterprise blockchains, more private blockchains, right? The golden handcuffs, right? USDC, USDT, the bridge between the, Web3 and BlackRock's bundle, right? And programmability non-compliant wallets can be frozen instantly. That's a risk, right? The toll boost, BlackRock dominates the rails to capture free fees in the future capital flow. Very thin. Visa and Master also propose something, right? We need to watch. The physical reality of AI, the picks and shovels, right? Interesting, right? We're selling shovels. It's a golden rush, it's a good rush, but we're selling shovels. Okay. The cycle of necessity, power, energy. Right? Power needs infrastructure. I agree. It's almost my words verbatim, right? I'm glad I made these videos using the new tool. Otherwise, it take me ages. Really, that's telling. That's enough. I don't need to be fancy. Data center, the AI power, tower, Blackstone's pivot, moving from gold to picks and shovels, data centers, power grid. Oh my God! Microsoft, Meta, Google, 364 billion. Well, 1 year only have 365 days. Each day you spend $1 billion. My God, quite a lot of money, right? The regulatory capture clearing the road. Phase 1, targeting privacy, enforcement against tornado, cash, and summary, wallet, and text on self-custody. You need to place a sovereign robots in each one of those, right? I can produce it for you. I can also engineer that internal brain for that. What is I'm doing? The squeeze, stealing the small players, silver squeeze, digital, and delays in crypto market, right? Structural bill, blocks and shifts, right? A lot of players, right? Regulations by enforcement, remote Wild West developers, banks, and asset managers step in to offer the safe, compliant alternative. That's what we need. And privacy paving the way for surveillance capable, compatible, and unified ledger, institutional arrival. Essentially, the banks need to join the institutional ETFs, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and tokenized funds, right? Yeah, the lot at play, right? But the middle is the risk. The traditional corporate and paper and fiat currency. And the new digital real, right? Physical sovereignty, good silver, land, energy. The shield remove the counterparty, third parties risk. Transition is from promises to possession. Right? By the time the mainframe acknowledge the shift, the most important positioning has already been taken, right? So hurry up, right? As I said, I dig pretty deep. I'm still reading. I have, a lot of books. The myth of monopoly. Do we need a monopoly, or do we need democracy there? Any business is running by democratic. Yeah. I'd like to ask the fundamental question: what is money? Do we need to redefine that? Right? It's more like a medium of exchange, right? Unit of account, right? Or what is it? Anything that is generally accepted as payment for goods or services, right? Any repayment of debts, right? That's more like more scholarly, and stores value, right? The worth, right? And there are a lot of ways, right? Commodity money, fiat money, checks, electronic payment, electronic money, digital currency. How we paid it, even more nowadays, right? Now we're back to the RWA part. What is money? Okay, if we ask whoever able to monopolize, right, JP Morgan, whoever one of the giants, right, Do they know? They pull out the bag and do they know? It's hard, right? They might have very surprise answers. We typically know what is M1, right? The nearest measure of money, yeah? Including most liquid assets can be used, like gold and silver, directly as medium of exchange, right? This could include later on the currency, the coins and paper money, right? They could transfer, like demand, deposit, that's what we mean, right? The M1. But M2 is more elaborate. It's a broader. I studied M1, but are not liquid, can be converted into cash. Like, the savings, right? Obviously, some of the small dimensional deposits, certificates, right? Money market, a mutual fund, right? Some of those, right? Now, in the RWA world, which I think it's going to have some bearing, right? So what is money? What is M1, M2? Right? So the very vocabulary, right? It needs to be revisited, right? We need a lot of real financiers, right? To not only make a lot of money, but provide the thoughts, right? The leadership there. You're gonna have to put the system in a healthy spiral, right? A flywheel, whatever you call it, right? Based on which you have to have regulations, law, right? Conducts. How do you relate to money? And if you don't know what money is, how do you relate to it, right? That's the very fabric of human life, right? So let's take a look at this before we can close. Right? This is monopoly, the global finance, right? That's quite ancient time, before right in the war, right? Era. I believe the currency dominance is explosive, right? And history suggests it is shared, right? Multipolar coexist natural monopoly, the old, the new. We are old again, right? Alternative, right? And the lock-in, a lot of stuff. We can look at it, right? Network A, liquid financial markets, the gateway technology, a new view. How gateway technology break lock-in, right? Liquidity as a bridge. Pretty much the stablecoin, the proposal of the Genius Act, liquidity is one of the big questions. And efficiency of payment, right? Instead of days to clear that, and you take seconds. Right? The frictions are gone, right? But again, a lot of fraud there, risks. And now we need to look at it again, right? The black hole of the economy, the data vault. Now, for the, new payment, they have a lot of ISO standards, right? Addresses need to be put it like this, and how do you fill up the instruction, right? Because you need data to travel together with the actual fund, right? I used to draw quite extensive this sort of things on the wall, right, to explain to the crowd, right? It is quite essential, right? But again, in the new RWA or crypto part, do we agree on anything? I guess not, right? Not yet. Cross server, the dollar, the sterling, right? A lot of things. And again, right, the geopolitics, the present resistance, the sterling block, right? The critical, the essential financial debts. Right? GDP, when you invented those, right? And we measure the national productivity. We need to reevaluate that, right? It's kind of funny sometimes. You have more GDP, but you have a lot of poverty as well. You have people who earn hundreds of thousands a year, but again, nearly falling behind the lines of survival, right? Is that poverty? Is that being rich? But if you look at the GDP per capita, they're rich. But you look at the quality of the life, not so rich, right? The stability, the safety are not there, right? The health not there, right? Then the sovereignty, independence is not there. So something wrong, right? And implication of the 21st century, euros and yuan, China, Europe, right? Contagion, ecosystems, history is reversible. I don't know. Right? The future is winner takes all. I potentially don't think so, right? Again, as I said, I read a lot of books, right? Just continue to read, but it's something we need to pay attention. So, okay, the 2 hours already. Need to close it soon, right? Talking about survival, talking about the finance, right? Talk about war, talk about law, industry, talking about technology, human civilization, ontology, right? Sovereignty, right? The world's. Essentially, you need, business is one way of, being yourself, contribute to the world, right? But the critical thing is survival, right? You can be rich for like maybe 10 years, 20 years, or even for one generation, two generations, three generations. And then you go back to homeless or poverty, right? That's a problem, right? Many of the empires is like snow melting in a river, right? They're gone. The Romans, right? The one we're looking at is China. I'm from China, right? So that is where that's where I mentioned I Ching. I Ching has been many, many thousand years before this, for sure, right? Which is why I use it. But I Ching is one of the instrumental secret weapons that sustain this culture. Almost everything derived from it. What is going on? Where are we now? The dialogue, right? The divergence. Right? Now we get into the moon, right? By the way, this is quite a wrong interpretation, but again, it's good, right? 女娲补天, but it's really fixing the time. That's where agriculture, right? You need to fix the season, right? That's why a calendar today in China is still way superior than the calendar we use now. But people don't realize that. That has strong mathematical basis from astrology, right? Not take 1,000 years to observe, not suddenly had a dream, you know everything. That's just for us, right? Recognizing the inevitability of sudden change, right? This is kind of try to closing up. So the forge, right? The century-long flood. We all know that, the big flood, deluge, whatever you call it, right? The way that they did it, they fixed it, right? Rather than get the ark, right? They actually fix it. We're in the same situation again. A lot of risks, the rupture, but we need to fix it, right? So how, right? You cannot stop it. You have to flow with it, right? Find a way out. And the breaking, right? See, they need infrastructure. They need mathematics. They need science, technology, engineers. Not just using the shovel. Okay. Can you believe it if you can sustain 500 years as you think they have just very primitive? No. In nowadays, doesn't matter is a deep space or this new computer or any technology, they tend to go to digging out, it's where they have some inspiration. So directly text material they can just learn and copy. So don't know if you know that secret. Probably some you do. The skill, the national survival, right? It's something we need to think. The authority, sovereignty, right? Enforcement, resources. Again, as I say, the family, the state, the governance structure, the law, right? The law in the West becomes something like I study, becomes something like fiat money, right? It's a layer, right? It's a family-run business. It's no longer a law, right? That's also we need to rethink a bit, right? And the transition is about the unification, right? And the political call, right? The system we're still using, economic system, right? They're digging out from the desert the recording of how they manage, right? It's impressive, right? If you follow through. Also, I pay some attention archaeologically in Egyptian, right? Greece, medically, right? Autonomy and forensic science, right? I'm going to do something, right? It relates what we do. The AI robotics, the elements, right? The human, okay? That's what I am produce Maicrobotix, right? And we need those stuff, right? It's all integrated, right? If you don't benefit humans or the human civilization, you probably should not spend too much time there, right? You can build a splendid, fantastic something, right, on the mountain, but the Chinese model is not like it's the distribution of wealth has to be fair in a way, not like equally, not like that, but you need to think through now, right? How do you do with it? Not your collapse, right? How do we confront the modern crisis where we're in? As I said, you need law, lift, right? Law, industry, finance, technology. Oh, the wall, right? The workforce, some the arms, right? The some sort of different way of managing, or even physically, or psychologically. You need a lot of risks you have to manage, right? Essentially, we define the human in ontology and world. The challenge, right? It's not fundamentally changed. It's still quite comparable, right? Zigzag, zigzag. This doesn't mean much, right? I try to remind you, right, which model you should. Right now, we're in a crisis. You and I, we all have the responsibility to contribute. And maybe go back to the root, right? Hearts, right? Go back to the root, not like go back only philosophically or the old books. Go back to the root, the foundation of what human is, what life is, right? What is money, right? How do we distribute the wealth, okay? What are the ontology, sovereignty, okay? The laws and finance, right? The technology, the industry, right? Lift, the workforce, right? The basic, architecture of our civilization, and also the risks, right? Resources. So many fundamental questions that we need to really, really, really spend some time. We need brilliant mind, thinkers, right? Philosophers, speakers, writers, engineers, scientists, obviously, doers, right? Thinking is also doing, right? It's not easy business, right? If you want to make money, that's one way for you to contribute. It's also good, right? Produce children, right? Like, I don't know why people don't produce children. But in any case, at the same time, we need to build robots, right? AI. We need to redefine humans, probably, families. In any case, I need to close, but hopefully you get some from such long talk, right? I'm going to leave you with the image you might be able to take. The technology, and this other way of looking at it, right? 1937, right? Now, Civil War, whatever that is, right? Lot of things, right? That we need to rethink. The silver institutional pivot, long game, right? We need to watch this, right? It's quite significant. That's why I'm listening to them. The silver government designated a critical mineral. Why? For a good reason. And so it's an individual that I respect. He speaks. He runs a successful business. He contributes a lot. He also thinks and speaks, right? Benefit a lot of people, right or wrong, right? Doesn't have to be he's perfect. The pain is a messenger. I strongly believe that. As I always say that, suffering is benevolent, right? You have to go through the pain before you can really learn anything, So we're looking at the pivot, right? The squeeze, the circle, the cycle, right? Whatever you call it. Not too sure. They listen to the JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon, right? Also look up his profile and everything, right? They're doing that Onyx blockchain, right? And it's acquired some sort of this is something we need to really look at carefully, right? But if you go back to history, right? That's from Jimmy, well, net worth, right? It's not self-worth, right? Turn around the bank 1 year, right? This book reviewed the JP Morgan Park, right? And Bank One, First Chicago, Unified Ledger, right? Bank One to JP Morgan, the poison, right? The poison pill called, right? Any case, you've been through that, right? The merger, right? Any case, the deal shared, the Bear Stearns acquisition, right? It's a fascinating story. Right? I'm not going to read all that stuff, right? See, the digital pivot. It's a Trojan horse, right? Blockchain, not Bitcoin, right? 1 trillion national transaction volume. Wow, impressive, right? Intraday repo financing, right? If you know what it is, right? It's quite impressive. Instant T+0 borrowing and lending of collateral, right? The quorum permissioned Ethereum 4, right? Public anti-crypto rhetoric, right? Any case, so that's something I'm observing very keenly. Right? It's not just the money; it's redefining what money is, right? The money market fund treasuries, right? And tokenization, smart contract, programmable, instant settlement, 24/7 liquidity, mobilizing the trapped trillions, right? That's what we mean by tokenization of real-world asset. Right? The walled garden, right? USDC, Tether, GWM, the KYC AML, the new reals, right? The Western capital US market, right? The trillions going to Chinese market. Why? Ask why? Fly to China because the industrialization part, right? The real you have to produce, right? You have to really remember that, right? You have to touch the ground, touch the silver and gold, touch the mines, the street, produce real good products people can use, right? The service, right? But they are also have system that they have a very they have two systems, right? One is internal, the other is more use Hong Kong as a gate, right? They do not allow you to liquidity there is not like you can take money as if you're in US, right? That we need to study. We have the DCEP, digital currency, right? Electronic payment, right? They ban the bitcoins and stable coins kind of stuff, right? RWA internally is not allowed, but they really, the data become the asset. Hong Kong is allowed, Singapore, Hainan, they open up. Think about it. This is something individual level, or business level, institution, like up to the country, state level. This is what how is, right? How, if you look at GDP, it's one way to look at it. But what is the real, like, produce your wealth? How much you really produce, right? What's your money based on? You printed $1 billion. Is that real? What back it up, right? That's where, white flew. Right? Humans, right? Humanity, humans, what we are, human beings versus robotic beings. The ontology, the business part, right? Digital twins, whatever you have. Essentially, you have to have a heart and soul of your business. You know what you're doing. You have to be distinctive, differentiate yourself. Your business model, your business operations. Nobody can really verbatim just, use it right away, right? If you in that kind of business, it's very easy being taken over. It's a huge risk, right? You have to think about what is your mode, strategic mode. What is the deterrent? Right? IP? Oh, IP is fine. It's one kind of that, right? But then at state, nation level, you need to define the wealth. You need to find a way to distribute the wealth. Look after the majority of the people, democratic, right? That's what the wealth is for, wealth of nation. Translate, average, right, wealthy citizens, the real way, not just by GDP figures per capita. It doesn't mean much, does it? Okay. Hopefully, AI and robotics offer us an opportunity to re-examine those. Right? That's what I hope for. Right? We're in that crisis right now, and the balance horizon, the banking license, it's hard, right? There's many. They tried. Libra, if you remember, Mark Zuckerberg, they tried. High hopes, right? But didn't work out. England have take the crypto in a different level. I don't know. Will it work out, right? And the cybersecurity here, right? So, yeah, you look at the fortress balance sheet, the opportunity rigor, the macro realism, innovate or die. Right? Kind of impressive, right? I tend to agree than disagree, right? But some will agree to disagree, right? So, very fascinating, I have to say that. Right? The operating system of the global capital. We are the indispensable nation, right? US. Formidable, still respect, right? Huge power there, especially in the financial and technology sector, right? Yeah, we need to Canada as a neighbor, right? I think you might, leave this as a blueprint or this, right? Or this. It's a very good imagery that if you put in your mind, you're going to benefit, right? Look at it, right? Right. So, not sure if you realize this, right? Quite a Renaissance era, right? Florence, right? I used to walk in there thinking, like when I'm reading these kind of books, right? Where are they today? Right? Think about it, right? Where are they today? The global flooring, right? Global standard. They used to, really powerful. Right? Today, like, are they able to rebuild the glory? Not too sure, right? So that's where it's also something, right? The great pivot, right? They are transferring some of the wealth for good reason, right? The crypto part played Canix is a new name, Canon, right? It's the infrastructure, right? They use the crypto, right? And we're not gonna dive too deep, right? The golden and such, right? Such or such, I don't know. I think it's such. Kind of network, the Deloitte, the public internet, the Bank of New York, 11, the BNP. It's the UK guild trade, right? Lloyd Bank, right? The first public blockchain mechanism, tokenized deposit using to buy government bonds, right? The significant real-world asset moving on-chain via Canon. Right? Well, we're going to circle back on this more, right? But you really need to, for me, the word garden, right? Formerly Onyx, now it's Canexis, right? Intraday repo, cross-border financial exchange, right? Settlement, the coin system, programmable payment. It's incredible. It is incredible, right? So what is it, right? They talk about the bitcoins, and historical blockchain, and whatever JPM coins, 2021. It's a lot of different twists and turns, right? Ethereum, and now Canons and Canix, right? 1.5 billion, right? And yeah, like the first commercial bank deployment on public rails, and Alibaba ecosystem, right? That's Enter China, right? The payment and AI. You remember that financials, Alibaba. And I need to do a little presentation. You need to understand why it been stopped. Right? Here, it doesn't mean it died. You need to train a different way, in a regulated, compliant way of doing finance, right? New ecosystem, you try and control, right? A lot of errors. The killer app, agentic commerce. Yeah, I believe so. But it's very, very conceptual, right? Cannot hold bank account, right? Risk reward spending, blockchain wallet, right? Containerization, agency operate as fixed fund, right? And immutability, code prevents the agent from draining the main bank account inside on the base power the future of machine-to-machine commerce, right? I think the internet protocol forgot the 2.3 or something, right? The small testing part, one of the code, they architected years ago, right? In the web era, right? The digital marketplace, the blockchain wallet, right? It's, again, I believe it is truly a killer app, right? A money multiplier. By the way, this is one part of my product ecosystem as well, right? The money multiplier, how to tokenize duplicated yields, right? Fantastic, right? And the institutionalizing habits, structured nodes, right? Both Bitcoin, link node, all that kind of stuff. We need to dive deep, but here's just surfacing, right? Scratching the surface, right? The political tier one, the regulatory mode. Right? Regulatory is a mode. I like that. Right? 4 years of regulatory war acted stall tactic, right? banks have built their infrastructure and now legally clear to operate. If I was the government, that close it down because the government approved issuer, right? Any case, so the Soros issuer, the infrastructure napkin, right? And here again, the end of the casino, the right, the infrastructure, right? The JP Morgan isn't fighting crypto anymore; they are becoming crypto. Why? Think about it. Why are they going from very skeptical fighting disease? They embrace it. Why? Again, a lot of reasons. Some are good, some are bad. You need to find it out because you are in it. You're in the game. Okay. If you don't define money, money will define you very easily, right? So if you don't become a master of the AI robotics, you become a slave of them, right? It's no escape. So again, not gonna put it forever. That's what I read. That's the book I read. JP Morgan, right? Quickly, the Baron, the founder, the emperor, whatever you call it, action. It's quite fascinating, right? A lot of conspiracy, the Yellow Brick Road, right? The Dorsey, my children, I YouTube them, right? I just go through that, Prince, the education of, stories there, a lot of stories, right? Opportunity, the rival, right? The silence, whatever, right? You heard all the stories, right? And on the yacht, to do that, right? Diplomacy. It's quite fascinating, as I said, right? Julius Sierra, right? The House of Morgan, New World Opportunity. It's a telling story, the embracing crypto now. Think about it. It's not a small player. It's almost the king of the hill, right? Or why? Okay, think. This is another anatomy of the planet. Right? Collapse and rescue. And the universal loop. Interesting, right? Where are we now in the loop? The shadow banks. Okay, the cut list, right? And again, the run of the trust, right? The savior, right? The divergence, right? And chip money plus the U.S. market, okay? The leverage machine, okay? The holding companies, right? The investment trust, the Russian doll structure, brokers loans, right? Margins, right? The manipulation. Oh, a lot of stories, and even today, right? That's where the fun is. Once you get close to money, humans will change. They morph into a different human, right? Different being. You know that, right? How do you relate to money defines who you are. Again, we look at the Renaissance part, right? Again, read through the part of the history is quite telling, right? Because we need to redefine some of those fundamentals, right? Go back to their thinking through, walk a bit, right? May help you, right? And pivot to Silk, right? Where do we pivot to? RWA now? The banking, right? The trade, the golden flooring, right? We talked about it. The penetration, right? And the explosion, crash, the golden age, the silver age, right? Competitive shift, right? The fall of the flooring, and the manufacturing versus finance. Okay, the banking profit, the industry turnover. Then we flipped, as you know, right? Then later on, we really need to rethink through much of those, right? And you probably should. The impossible engine is one phrase you need to capture, right? Okay, come back to Canada. We have a lot of timber, right? If you go to Algonquin Park, you see the scars, right? Being 100 years that they try to cut wood, move out of Canada. But now, after 70, 80 years, the US, right? Now, you still have a lot of wood, right? What do you do with it? It again is one way to look through a lens of wood and see how what I mean, the how, right? The humans, ontology, the world, right? How, they come to redefine again. Then lift, right? Lift, the law, right? The infrastructure or industrialization and finance and technology. We evolved a lot. Then all the war. But we've been through wars for sure. The workforce, right? Take it apart, the different architecture, right? In terms of how you organize the government stuff, right? And also the risks. How you manage it? Run away in an arc, or you fix it? Yes, like the huge snowstorm, right? 60 centimeters, right, in Canada. Right? Hey, my snowblower, right? Maybe scared to death, right? Just cannot start. What do I do? My shovel is very small. But again, I still have to do it, right? With my bare hand. Just do it, right? Just do it. Maybe that's the quickest way, right? Maybe that's the best way. Yeah. You have the best leverage. You have all the protection. Hey, you're still facing the harsh nature, right? Just do it, right? You have to face the reality. That's what the humans are, right? The risk is always there, no matter how prepared you are. You could be facing the brutal reality any moment. Be prepared, right? And so again, I'm thinking for Canada, right? It's more like 18th century, right? Whatever. Where are we now? Right, the Stone Age. Okay, and the squirrels were designed by the whatever you look at it, right? 6 million years ago. Doesn't matter. The chimpanzees, the physics of the first tool, it's imaginary. Is it? The chemical spark, again, science and parable, right? They outsourced our digestion to the fire. The fire allowed us to shed our fur, right? And then microclimate, and then the vessel of commerce, right? The silver cake, right? The synthesis, really, sand boats, right? The wood moves the economy. That's great. That's true. Look at it, right? The calories, the brain growth, the geopolitics, global trade, and structure, knowledge. They make books as well, right? Touch your thumb to your finger is a light-hearted way to close, right? Canada, right? You have an opportunity. You have a lot of opposition, even inside, right? Outside is easy, but inside a lot of skepticism, opposition, runaways. They all have different vested interests. It's natural. You need a new architect, a leader, right? We need to build new workforces. We need reindustrialization. The law, the finance, the technology, a lot at stake. We have a golden opportunity as well. Okay, we're gonna catch up next time. Anything else I need to leave before we close? Let's see. Which side do you want to be in, right? It's about fire, right? I don't know what it is. Rich guys waste cars. Poor guys might find the mutation. The game of replacing search is over. The year of the idiot. Not sure what it means, right? But it's a good phrase, right? Okay, asymmetric competition. Innovation under constraint. Rich and poor, right? China is not exactly poor. It's just they value the money or wealth differently. Right? But again, we need to watch DeepSeek. Okay. Okay, this is my business, right? I mentioned that. Here's the how lift a $3 trillion question, triple trillion dollar question, right? We need to redefine, we need to coexist, right? Human beings versus robotic beings, or put it precisely, independent human beings versus sovereign robotic beings. Ontology, more enterprise AI, business, how do you run a business? AI, robotics not enough. You must have a soul, right? Yourself, right? The world, data assets, RWA, how the nation can, nation world, right? And that's down to the business, down to the individuals as well, right? But 3 layers, if you will, right? Then which way to get there? Lift or wall, right? One is positive, the other more figuratively not that pleasant. But again, you need both, really. Wall is not totally negative, okay? Law, compliance, industry, finance, and technology, obviously the workforce, and architecture or physical capacity, resource risk management. We need to redefine the civilization through sovereign robotics. That's what I propose, right? The bodacious goal, but I'm working on it. Again, I need investment, need partners, need to really collaborate, solve this big problem. Doing business is one way towards that end or that goal, right? And the systematic architecture is simple. I Ching layer, right? Elements, infrastructure, chips and compute, models, agentic AI, and sovereign robotics. Right? See, this is the proposition, right? If you will, as a dynamics, demilitarized zone, the layout of my business structure, whatever that made these products. This is already in progress. This is becoming, right? So that's the model of retro, how I look at it, right? The hardware, how I, put it, right? So robotics, data, competition, China. Okay, this is really try to leave this, right? And we're gonna catch up again, right? So think it is 2.5 hours. Whoever is lucky to listen to this, believe you might benefit. You might benefit by, you have to think through yourself. You might be opening the door to a $1 billion opportunity by simply listening to me. I intend to do that. It doesn't mean that I can guarantee it. Right? At least that's what I'm approaching, right? That's where I'm going. So, okay, so let's close it. Yeah, we need to close, but I need to make a little cover page. Right? Let's see. Okay. Maybe you can use this one, but they're gonna come back, many more times. It's not, evolving way, building something real. Skill is not easy, right? But it's, have a purpose, right? Benefit more than other kind. Right? So, thank you. Gonna catch up again.
人生几何？譬如朝露去日苦。